You stand in front of the mirror longer than you used to, wondering why your hair never quite says put together anymore. Imagine 5 haircuts so flattering for your 80s that strangers stop noticing your age and start noticing your elegance. I research worst style and beauty mistakes and youth-boosting fixes for mature women, so you get simple, proven transformations that work instantly. Today we're perfecting 5 haircuts that make older women look instantly younger after 80, and by part 3, you'll want to pause and look in the mirror. I mean it. We're covering everything from soft framing layers to the one crop your stylist has been too afraid to suggest. And the very first haircut? It is the one I see transform faces in seconds. Let's go. 1. The soft layered bob. You have probably been told that after 80, the safest haircut is whatever has worked for the last 20 years. That blunt, heavy bob sitting flat against your jaw might be quietly adding years to your face every single morning. I have watched women shave a decade off their reflection with one single change to this exact cut. Here is what nobody mentioned. Hair changes density and texture dramatically after 80, and a cut with no internal layering simply cannot move with that new texture. It sits like a helmet instead of framing your face. Most stylists are afraid to suggest layers on fine, mature hair because they worry it will look wispy. That fear is costing you years. The fix is the soft layered bob, and honestly, it is the one change I wish every salon explained before a woman turns 80. This is not a drastic cut. It is internal layering woven through the same length you already have. So the hair lifts at the crown instead of collapsing against your skull. The first thing your stylist should do is remove weight from underneath, never from the visible top layer. That keeps your silhouette soft instead of choppy. Second, the length should land right at or just below the jaw, never longer because anything past that pulls your whole face downward. This one is everything. Third, ask for graduated layers around the face specifically, not throughout the entire head. That graduation is what creates lift exactly where your eyes need it most. Fourth, request a slightly rounded back shape instead of a straight blunt line. Rounded reads as soft and intentional. Straight reads as accidental and aging. Fifth, and this is the one most women skip, ask for texturizing at the very ends only, just enough to remove bulk without losing body. There is one styling secret that makes this cut work every single time. It is a 2-minute root lift with a round brush, blow drying against the direction your hair naturally falls. And that small motion is what separates a flat, tired bob from one that looks like it was styled by a professional. If you are still wearing your hair the exact length and shape it was in your 60s, swap it for this jaw-grazing layered version instead, because your face has changed and your haircut needs to change with it. If your stylist keeps cutting everything the same blunt length, swap that appointment for someone who specializes in mature, fine textures. Maintenance is simple. A light mousse on damp hair before you blow dry keeps the lift through the entire day. And a weekly trim of stray ends keeps the shape from collapsing back into bluntness. Watch her eyes in that photo. That is what proper layering does in less than 20 minutes. There is a reason this is the very first cut on this list. It works on almost every face shape, and it takes your stylist less than 20 minutes to execute. That is the kind of fix that changes how your whole face reads in every photo from now on. But the second haircut on this list does something this one cannot. It solves the one problem almost every woman over 80 quietly struggles with every single morning. 2. The feathered pixie crop. Have you ever stood in the salon chair, scissors hovering, and felt too afraid to ask for something shorter? Almost every woman over 80 has that exact moment, and almost every one of them talks herself out of it. That hesitation might be the very thing keeping your face looking heavier than it needs to. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. Long hair on very fine, thinning strands does not read as youthful past a certain density loss. It reads as tired, because the weight drags every strand flat against your scalp with nothing left to create shape. The feathered pixie crop solves that instantly by removing the one thing working against you. Weight. Yes. That simple. The first technique your stylist needs is point cutting at the ends, not blunt cutting, because point cutting creates the soft feathered texture that makes thin hair look deliberately textured instead of accidentally sparse. Second, ask for slightly longer length on top than on the sides, because that contrast is what creates the lift every pixie needs to avoid looking severe. Third, request feathering specifically around the temples and crown, since that is where most density loss shows first and feathering disguises it beautifully. Fourth, keep just enough length at the nape to avoid a stark, blunt edge at the back of your neck. Fifth, and this one surprises people, ask for the front pieces to be cut at a very slight diagonal rather than straight across, because diagonal lines photograph far more flattering than straight ones. I had a client tell me this cut made her feel like herself again for the first time in a decade. There is one product that makes this cut last from morning until evening. A small amount of texturizing paste worked only through the ends, never the roots, keeps the feathering crisp without ever looking greasy or weighed down. If you are still clinging to length that has thinned past the point of looking full, swap it for this cropped feathered version, because shorter strands with intentional texture will always photograph thicker than long strands with none. If your current style requires 20 minutes of blow drying just to look presentable, swap that entire routine for a cut that air dries into shape on its own. Maintenance stays simple here too. A trim every 6 weeks keeps the feathering sharp, and sleeping on a silk pillowcase prevents the ends from flattening overnight. Your bone structure deserves to be seen, not buried under length that stopped working for you years ago. This cut does not just shorten your hair. It reveals everything that has been hiding underneath it this entire time. But there is one haircut on this list that goes even further, the one I promise would make you stop and look in the mirror. 3. The side-swept silver shag. That shag haircut you have seen on younger women, and assumed was not for you? You were wrong, and I am about to prove it. The side-swept silver shag is, without question, the most transformative cut on this entire list. And it works specifically because of the texture changes that happen to hair after 80, not in spite of them. Most women assume shag cuts require thick hair to work. The opposite is true. Shag layering is specifically designed to create the illusion of density using shorter, choppier pieces layered through longer sections, which means thinning fine hair is actually the ideal canvas for this cut, not a limitation. You needed to hear this. The first move is asking your stylist for heavy layering throughout the crown specifically, because that is what builds the airy lifted silhouette this cut is known for. Second, request a deep side part rather than a center part, since an asymmetric part instantly softens any squareness in the jaw and redirects attention upward toward your eyes. Third, ask for choppy face framing pieces cut slightly shorter than the rest of the length, because those pieces are what create movement every time you turn your head. Fourth, the back should stay slightly longer and less layered than the crown, which keeps the silhouette from looking top-heavy. Fifth, request a few wispy pieces left intentionally loose at the temples, because that subtle imperfection is exactly what makes this cut look effortless rather than overworked. There is one detail your stylist will not mention unless you ask. The shag only works with the right blow-dry technique, tipping your head forward and drying from underneath first to build that crown volume before anything else. If you have spent years pulling your hair back tightly because you thought that looked neater, swap that habit for this loose, layered shag, because tightness ages a face far more than soft, intentional movement ever could. If your part has stayed dead center for decades, swap it for a deep side part today, because that single shift changes the shadows across your entire face. This is the one that made a woman in my comments say her own daughter did not recognize her in the new photo. Maintenance is forgiving here, which is part of the appeal. A light texturizing spray scrunched in by hand, never brushed through, keeps the shag looking intentional for days. Go look in the mirror right now. I told you that you would want to buy this part, and I meant every word of it. The next haircut solves a problem completely different from anything we have covered so far. One that lives entirely at your crown. 4. The voluminous crown crop. Run your fingers along your part line right now. If you can see more scalp than you would like, you are not imagining it, and you are definitely not alone. Crown thinning is the single most common change in hair after 80, and almost nobody addresses it with the right haircut. Here is the part that surprised me when I first researched this. Most women try to hide crown thinning by growing their hair longer, assuming more length means more coverage. It does the opposite. Longer hair pulls on the roots with its own weight, flattening the very area you are trying to disguise. The voluminous crown crop reverses that completely. This is a short, structured cut with deliberate height built directly into the crown through cutting technique, not products or teasing. This one is everything. The first essential is asking for graduated layers that get progressively shorter toward the crown, because shorter hair stands up with far less effort than long hair ever could. Second, request the sides kept slightly close to the head, which creates contrast that makes the crown height red as even more dramatic. Third, ask your stylist to cut against the natural growth pattern at the crown specifically, a technique that creates built-in lift no product can replicate. Fourth, keep the nape short and tapered to avoid any visual heaviness pulling the eye downward. Fifth, request a slightly piecey finish on top rather than a smooth one, since texture reads as volume even on the thinnest strands. There is one truth about crown volume that changes everything once you understand it. It has almost nothing to do with how much hair you actually have left. It has everything to do with the angle the hair is cut to leave the scalp. If you have been growing your hair longer specifically to hide thinning at the crown, swap that instinct for this short structured crop, because length is working against you in exactly the spot you most want help. If you rely on teasing or backcombing for height, swap that damaging habit for a cut engineered to stand up on its own. A friend of mine stopped checking her part line in every mirror she passed once she got this cut. That is the kind of relief we are talking about. Maintenance only requires a small amount of root lifting spray applied at the scalp before blow drying upward, never down. This cut alone has changed how confident women feel walking into rooms without thinking twice about their part line. One haircut remains, and it might be the most flattering of all 5, because it does something none of the others can do for the eyes. 5. The face framing curtain bob. This is it. The final haircut on this list, and the one I get asked about more than any other. If your eyes have started to look smaller, tireder, or somehow farther away in photos lately, this part is exactly for you. Here is the key insight nobody tells you. Your eyes are the single feature that ages slowest, even as everything around them shifts. Most haircuts ignore that entirely. The face framing curtain bob is built specifically around drawing every bit of attention straight to your eyes and away from everything else. That is the whole secret. The first technique is cutting 2 longer pieces that frame each side of the face, starting just above the cheekbone and angling gently inward toward the chin, because that exact angle lifts the eye area instantly. Second, request soft curtain bangs that part naturally down the middle rather than a blunt fringe, since curtain bangs open the face instead of covering it. Third, ask for the framing pieces to be slightly shorter than the rest of the bob, which creates a deliberate, sculpted shape around your features. Fourth, keep enough length through the crown to maintain softness, because too much shortness here competes with the framing pieces instead of supporting them. Fifth, and this is the detail stylists most often forget, ask for the very ends of the framing pieces to be point cut, never blunt, so they curve naturally toward your face rather than poking outward. There is one moment during this cut that tells you it was done correctly. When you tuck both framing pieces behind your ears, and then let them fall back forward, they should land precisely at your cheekbones without you touching them again. If you have been pulling every strand back away from your face because you thought that looked neat and tidy, swap that habit for these soft framing pieces, because neat is not the same as flattering, and your eyes deserve the attention they have been missing. If your current fringe sits blunt and heavy across your forehead, swap it for soft curtain bangs that part naturally and move with your face instead of against it. Honestly, this is the cut I recommend more than any other, because nothing else on this list does as much for the eyes in as little time. Maintenance takes 30 seconds. Finger comb the framing pieces forward after any wash or wind, and they will fall back into place exactly where they were cut to sit. 5 haircuts. 5 completely different problems solved. And every single one of them built specifically around the way your hair and your face have changed, not against it. You have everything you need now to walk into your next salon appointment and ask for exactly the right thing, by name, with total confidence. You just learned 5 haircuts that work specifically with the hair and face changes that happen after 80, not against them, and that is more than most women ever get told in a single salon visit. Boom! Your bone structure was always this stunning, now it finally has a haircut that shows it. Tell me, which of these 5 cuts matched what you needed most, the lift, the volume, or the framing around your eyes? Next time, we're tackling the one clothing mistake that quietly adds 10 years to mature women every single morning. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.